So with the knowledge of how we're able to use manipulators and use even liquid templates to adjust field values and uh, edit our content as through ImpulseSync before it reaches our destination to get the appropriate value we want at our destination, let's look at how we're able to verify and validate, aside from just a regular sync, how the content should look and make sure that our manipulators are running as expected. So what we'll see here is in our jobs page, we have the ability to run a job in debug mode. Now, when you run a job in debug, what it will do is it will limit your job down to a smaller job, only picking up one piece of content and sending that through the entire sync process. Now, it will not deliver that content to the destination. Instead, it will generate a report, where if we go to our reports page, and we'd be able to see our option to actually download our debug report, where we have our debug report here to be able to download. Now, I have already downloaded one of these for us to look at real quick, where our debug report is going to look something like this, where you have our transaction ID, the original content, the content as it looks like after each manipulator, the content as it looks like after the content mapping, and some additional details that we won't be looking at today. So first, we'll quickly look here at our original content. This original content is what the content looked like as it was picked up from the source system. So these are all the fields that the content has and their values and such that it has as it's picked up from the source system for the job. Now under our manipulators, we'll see something very similar where each manipulator has its content. And we'll see though that each content is under the manipulator that ran. So here we can see our content after the store field manipulator ran. And then after our second store field manipulator ran, we can review what the content looked like then, and so on and so forth. If we looked at this other debug report for a different piece of content, we'd be able to see what the content looked like first from the source system, and then we'd be able to see what the content looks like after we ran the add replace manipulator. Then we can see what the content looks like after this liquid manipulator ran, and again after this get set field manipulator ran, allowing you to track how every manipulator that you've configured for your job has adjusted the content as necessary to make sure that your configuration on your manipulators is correct. Now, in the same vein, we can see what the content looks like after the content mapping, making sure that we have the appropriate field ID that we need to migrate it to our destination, as well as the field type that we expect. This all can be used to make sure that your configuration for your job is set up as you expect and you're getting the values you expect on your fields for your content while it migrates through ImpulseSync. Now, with this debug job, what we're actually going to be able to do is make use of our liquid playground with the values stored here. So one thing that you're probably going to run into is wanting to adjust and build your liquid template and test it before actually running your migration. So for instance, if we go ahead and edit one of these jobs, and let's go to add a liquid manipulator. All right. So before we start writing out what our liquid template is, we can open our test liquid config and test our liquid template to be able to write out our liquid template as best as we can before actually running the migration. So what we do is with our debug report, we can actually take the content from any of these locations, whether we want to take the content from the original content, or maybe we want to grab the content for our first manipulator, or even our second manipulator, or even after the content mapping. Now, in this case, I'm just going to take the original content here. I'll copy that value and put it into our data field here. This way, now what I can do is start writing out a template to interact with this content as we would want. So what we'll see here is we have our template. So our language ID is going to be UND, and we can take any of our fields that exists in this content. So for instance, we can take UID here, that's our first field, and we'll see what the UID field value is. VUUID, data, so on and so forth. Now, let's go ahead and take a look for one of the caption values here. So we'll go ahead and take the field ID for this field, which is a caption value. And what we'll see here is now we can take this and use further liquid templating to actually parse out and adjust our caption value as necessary. Now maybe our caption value is supposed to append the title field or prepend it, where we want to prepend the content's title, and that's supposed to be a part of our caption at our destination. So we'll be able to test this, make sure that our liquid template is correct, and we'll notice, oh look, we have our title being added, but it's too close, so we need some additional white space maybe, or any other additional necessary filtering or parsing or adjustments that need to be made. So between our debug jobs, where we can take this, get this debug report and validate that our content looks as it should for each field and each manipulator step as we progress, as the content progresses through the ImpulseSync system, we can also use our debug report in combination with our liquid template manipulator and the liquid template playground here to be able to write out our templates before actually running our transactions and make sure that we can get the value that we're interested in to migrate to our destination.